Hey, I'm Sayf from Three Bears Data, and today we're going to talk about something that might sound a little dry to some of the more creative side of the marketers, which is marketing measurement. And what is marketing measurement? And it's important because it actually sits right at the heart of growth and creativity and confidence in your marketing. So most marketers these days, I think, say they're data driven, but a lot of what they're actually doing is counting, not measuring. And I'm going to talk about what that means as far as differences of that. So anyway, that's okay. Everyone starts with counting. That's where you start. The question is, how do we get you up that ladder? So what I want to talk today about is what I'm going to call the 7 levels of marketing measurement maturity, the real triple M. And the stages a business moves through as it goes from we have a dashboard to we understand what drives results. So before we dive in, quick disclaimer, I'm going to try and keep this as simple and jargon-free as possible for people who are in marketing and not in math. That means I'm going to simplify a few things. I might say magic. I'm going to try and make it so that people can understand what we're talking about when we talk about these different levels of marketing measurement. And so if you're a data scientist watching this, please go easy on me. I promise, I know there's more nuance, but the goal here is clarity, not I'm not doing a PhD defense. So again, this can be, when we get into the specific, how do we do this, it can get really complicated. It can be heavy on statistics. It can be heavy on machine learning and AI. It can be heavy on the particulars. But the reality is that that's super important. If we didn't have that, we couldn't do this. But I'm talking about it from a business perspective so that hopefully people who are not, they don't have a PhD in statistics, they'll understand what we're talking about when we talk about things like MTA, MMM, incrementality, and so on. So, all right, let's start climbing that ladder, and it's seven levels of this marketing measurement maturity, and we're going to go from 0 up to 6. So let's start with level 0. So level 0 we're going to call descriptive reporting. This answers the question, what happened? This is where almost everybody starts. You've got dashboards, you've got Google Analytics, you're looking at a click-through rate, you're looking at cost per acquisition, you're looking at revenue, you're seeing your data, and that's huge. So if you aren't even seeing what's happening, you're just literally throwing money into a black box and hoping conversions come out of it. So this is good, but level 0 is counting and not measuring. It tells you what happened. It doesn't tell you why it happened. So you might see that your sales went up 10% last week. Great. But was it because of your ads? Was it because of seasonality? Did a celebrity mention your brand? At level 0, the data doesn't tell you that. The pros of this are it's easy, it's cheap, and it gives you visibility. The cons are it's biased. Every platform is going to claim every win, and there's no sense of cause and effect. The reality is that underneath everything, the magic under the hood here is it's just basically spreadsheets, pixels counting events. There's no modeling. There's no AI. It's just tallying, tick, tick, tick. And so I guess you could say sub-level -1 would be a hit counter. But level 0 here would be something like just Google Analytics at the base level. It's just a data table of spreadsheets of this is what happened. But then you might start asking questions like, okay, but what channel actually deserves the credit for the work we do? What are we doing that's actually working? And that's when you go up to level 1, and that would be heuristic attribution. So heuristic attribution, you're asking the question of who gets credit. Heuristic just means rule of thumb. So at this stage, we're going to start giving credit for conversions, but we're going to do it using simple rules. So this is where you might have heard, hopefully if you're in marketing, you've heard of this, like things like last click, first click, linear, time decay, position based. Last click, it's the last thing someone clicked before they bought, gets all the credit. The first click, the first thing that we know they did, assuming that you actually can tell this person across all devices, because we don't live in that world. We don't live in a world where one person on one device is the entire customer journey. It's multiple people on multiple devices. So this falls apart almost immediately when you think about how we actually interact with the world. However, last click, it's the last thing you do. First click, the first thing you do gets all the credit. First thing they know that you do gets all the credit. Linear, everything they know that you did, again, it's you on one device gets credit. Or, there's more complicated than that. But, time decay, more recent things you did get more credit, going less into the background. Position based, maybe the first and the last get the most and the middle gets a little, but really you can design that however you want. You can create your own weighted models, and the models might sound fancy, but they're just spreadsheets with opinions. So They're easy to explain. That's a pro. The cons are it's arbitrary. They might make paid search or branded search look like a hero because it's the last thing someone does, and so the last click or the linear or the position based might give that a lot of weight, and time decay. A lot of these models are going to give the last click a lot of weight, but how many times is the last click that you've done a branded search because you're like, I've done all this homework on multiple devices and multiple people, and now I'm going to go buy the thing, and I Google the company and I click the branded ad at the top of the page. How much weight should that get? A lot of models like this, heuristic models, are going to give that a lot of weight. So it's just arbitrary. So the magic here isn't magic. There's no magic here. It's just formulas. There's no stats. It's just if this, then that. And so once you realize that those rules don't represent any kind of truth, you're hopefully going to start craving proof, and then we start getting into level 2. So level 2 would be incrementality and experiments. So now you're starting to ask questions. Did this thing we did cause lift? Now we start getting scientific. So incrementality, it's a big word that simply means how much extra did our marketing cause compared to what would have happened anyway. If we did nothing, what would have happened? We did something, what happened? How does it change? Usually within a single channel. But to find out, we have to run experiments. And so the experiments in this, it could be an A/B test. Half your audience sees your ads, half your audience doesn't. If the ad group buys more, the difference is your lift. You might do a geo test. Maybe you advertise in Chicago, but not in Dallas, and then you compare the sales. You can get really much more complicated with different kind of weighting mechanisms and percents from here and there, but because you really don't want to necessarily turn off all your ads to a major metro for any kind of time, because you're costing yourself money when you do that. Or you could do PSA or ghost ad tests. You could show neutral ads to a control group for fairness. And so when we're doing that, now we're talking about causality. That's really the holy grail. What's causing the lift? What are you doing that causes the result that you want? Pros here is credible. Finance teams love it. It proves your ROI. The cons are slower. It's more expensive. You can't test everything all the time, and it's very one-off. So it's not an ongoing thing. It's testing this for this period, and then once the test stops, things might change, and you have new campaigns, and you have new material. And does that apply to that? Probably not. Maybe not. It could. So under the hood, it's all about randomization and statistics, sample sizes, significance, confidence, and you don't need to understand the math. You just need to understand that the control groups are your best friend. But tests really are just snapshots, like I said. And so what you want from that point is you want to start moving into continuous measurement across every touch point every day. And that's where we start getting into level 3. And level 3 is multi-touch attribution. That's where our product for 3Bears Data OptiMeasure starts, really. We can do incrementality, but that's where our product really starts is with the multi-touch attribution. So what you're asking here is not just how one of our channels work, but you're asking how do all our channels work together? And this is where things really start to get sophisticated. So multi-touch attribution, or MTA, it looks at every click, every view, every interaction every person has before buying, and then it tries to estimate how much everything contributed to the whole. So imagine that someone saw a TikTok or something on Meta, a reel, then they saw the opposite, right? So they see a TikTok, and then they see something on Instagram, and then they click a Google ad, and then they get an email, and then they purchase. And so this could be across different devices, could be across different people. I'm looking at things, I'm having a conversation, my partner does things, and then we purchase. So we take all these different actions across all these different devices and all these different people, and then MTA, using magic, now we're into the statistics and data science realm, it tries to assign credit. And so maybe it's going to say 40% to TikTok, 30% to Google, 20% to email, 10% to Instagram. And it's a model that tries to be fair. The pros here are it's detailed, it's ongoing, and it can reveal synergies between channels. So the key thing here is that you really want this to be ongoing. That's where you step up from the incrementality. It's not just a one and done. The cons, though, is that at the lower level, if you don't do it as a more aggregated model, you need more user level tracking. And so that's where our cookieless MTA kind of comes in. So that's where some people would argue that our cookieless MTA is actually an MMM because we're looking at the aggregate. But I think that MTA, in the sense of I know a user and I'm tracking them across different points, that never happened. that was never something that could be done. So I really think we need to claw back MTA as being cookieless MTA, where you don't need user tracking, you don't need cookies, and you're looking at it in the aggregate, but it's more of a tactical thing. So the magic under the hood here is that it's statistical modeling. There's sometimes game theory. You can think of it as an algorithm saying, based on thousands of these or millions of these customer journeys, here's how much of each step mattered. And so if incrementality is science in the lab, MTA is science in the wild. But MTA is micro. And so we're still looking at channels and tactics, which is important because you want to look at these channels and tactics because you want to let's increase, the TikTok is giving us a lot of value. Let's increase our TikTok. Our Google ads are really giving a lot of value here. Let's increase our Google ads. And we'll get into how we would recommend doing that. But once you're past channel manipulation, you start getting into level 4 because you want to see the whole business impact. And that's where we get into level 4, which is MMM, marketing mix modeling. So MMM, that's saying what's driving results overall. So marketing mix modeling at the true level, it's an econometric approach that works with aggregated data instead of user data. Cookieless MTA is sort of that 3.5 level where it's not a 3-level MTA, that's user level data. 3.5, we're going to say that is cookieless MTA. It's halfway. So some people will call it light MMM or cookieless MTA or RBA for regression-based attribution, but it's aggregated data. But MMM is always aggregated, and you're looking at all the data from every day. Generally, you're going to look at weeks and you're going to look at months of spend by channel, including offline and online, seasonality and things like that. You're going to say, when spend goes up here, do sales go up too, adjusting for all the other factors. It's basically running an ongoing regression analysis to estimate what's driving your performance. The inputs of this can be channel spend, promotions, holidays, economic data. The outputs would be more things like every extra dollar in Meta yields $1.20 in revenue up to this point. The pros, there's no cookie, there's no user need. It's great for brand and offline channels. You do a lot of radio, you do a lot of billboard and TV, and you're doing email, whatever you're doing. Digital too, but everything that you're doing, you can throw into this. And then the magic for this one, it's regression models, it's Bayesian models, it's statistics with better storytelling. And so MMM, true MMM, that's going to give you that macro view. Then you really want to turn, whether you're using cookieless MTA at a 3.5 or you're using true MMM at a 4, the question when you get this is, what should we do next? Right? And that's where you get to level 5. So once you understand where these models are saying, based on aggregated data, either in very specific tactics for cookieless MTA or broad channel stuff with MMM, you want to start saying, what should we do next? What do we do with this? Because if we're not doing something with it, what's the point of it? So this is where we start saying we take everything we learn and we're going to use it in these predictive and optimization layers at level 5, and we're going to learn to use it and make better decisions. So these layers say, if I spend differently next month, what's going to happen? So they'll build response curves. So these are showing how each channel performs as spend increases, and use those curves to recommend the best budget allocation. So think of it as, based on what we've seen, and based on math and magic, we think you should increase this channel by this much because this interacts over here, and we need to drop this one. And so it's going to make a complex recommendation for how you need to balance everything and what changes you should make based on this predictive algorithm. So that's where measurement meets money. The pros of this, it directly drives ROI. You're making a change, you're going to get savings, you're going to get increased revenue, increased conversions, whatever you're looking to do based on how you're looking at those KPIs. You're going to be able to make those adjustments predictively. It's not 100%, but it is. You are going to see a lift, and that's also why you keep revising this and looking at this and keep playing with it, because it changes over time. So the cons here is that, like anything really, if your input data is wrong, your recommendations are going to be wrong. So garbage in, garbage out. So definitely at this point, you really need to have good, clean data, good taxonomy, good schema, data that you trust to put into a model. Because if your schema is broken, your taxonomy is bifurcated or whatever, you're going to have problems. But yeah, the magic here is definitely machine learning, running simulations, reinforcement learning. Some people have called it what-if engines. So it's still, even the best predictions need context. And that leads us to the last level, the final level, level 6, diagnostic and enrichment analytics. So the question here is more, why does performance differ? And at this level, you're not just measuring what works, you're discovering why it works. So this is where we start looking at things like creative fatigue. What messages are wearing out over time? You're running an evergreen campaign, but over time, it's just not performing as well. Or you're looking at audience cohorts. Which segments of your audience are the most responsive? You're looking at geotemporal patterns. What markets or seasons are outperforming? August, we do great. Or the Christmas season, we do great. And, we're doing amazing on the Jersey Shore in the summertime, right? So looking at those patterns, it tells us where we're performing, outperforming, underperforming, when, where, with who, with what, right? And we're saying, why does the performance differ with these things? And this is the layer where those insights that starts meeting that storytelling. And the pros here, I would say, is it humanizes data. It gives creative teams actual direction. And on the cons, it can become ad hoc. It can become siloed if it's not really connected back to measurement. So the magic here, it's clustering, it's segmentation, it's anomaly detection. It's basically algorithms finding patterns so that humans can act on them. And so once you reach this stage, you really have measurement and creativity finally working hand in hand. So that's really kind of like that last level where you want to get to that. Recapping, level 0, we're counting what happened. We're collecting data into a spreadsheet. Level 1, the heuristics, it's guessing who gets credit. We're putting weights on those channels. Level 2, incrementality, it's proving what's truly incremental. We're running incrementality tests. We're looking at things based on what if we do this or we don't do this, what happens? And level 3, now we're getting into MTA. We're trying to model how everything works together. And then 3.5, it's cookieless MTA. That's looking aggregated how things tactically in specific channels work, even onto a daily basis, so we can make these adjustments to what's working and what's not working. Level 4, we move into MMM, which truly gets into offline, seasonality, whatever you want, moving in there, measuring it on the weeks or months or even quarters, overall what channels are working to understand the full business impact. Then we get to level 5, prediction, optimization. We're predicting what comes next. Based on what we've seen and what the math says, we think you should increase this by this much, decrease this by that much. And then finally getting to level 6, we're explaining why and uncovering opportunity for what you can do. The creative is not working anymore. The region here is working great or not working great. The temporal, that kind of stuff. So explaining that why and uncovering that opportunity. So every level you're adding maturity, and ultimately measurement. There is magic and fancy math, but it's not about fancy math. It's about understanding cause and effect so that we can make smarter, creative business decisions. So I guess the question I have is that if you're watching it and you've already made it this far, thank you. Keep watching. I'm going to keep posting more information and background stuff, but I would ask you to subscribe, comment, but comment to me where are you on this ladder? Where is your organization on this ladder? If you're still level 0 or 1, there's no shame. Everyone starts there. And honestly, from my experience, there's a lot of companies that are still at level 0 or level 1 and need a little help to get up there. And if you want help getting up above level 0 and 1, reach out to me, threebearsdata.com, optimeasure.io. We do this. We help companies move from level 0 and 1 and even 2 up to 3, 4, 5, 6. We want to help you understand what that is. So if you like this breakdown, follow, subscribe. I'm going to try and keep doing deeper dives into different levels, into other aspects of data readiness. So thanks for watching. And to all my fellow data nerds out there, thank you for letting me keep it simple. Hopefully to the ones that aren't data nerds, hopefully that was simple and you understood it. If there's anything you have a question about, contact me, leave a comment. Happy to get into it more. But thanks.